Hi, Charles. My name is Neil. I'm with Dorkaholics, where we believe that there's a dork in everyone. It's our job to bring that dork out into the world.
Hello, Neil. Nice to meet you. I like that worldview.
Mhm. Yeah, I just want to say I've been reading Interior Chinatown, the novel, and it's so interesting to compare and contrast it with the series. And if I understand correctly, the Interior Chinatown, the novel came out in 2020, a little after Crazy Rich Asians came out, and as a tale, it touches upon the lack of representation for for the Asian community, as well as the reasons why our experiences with that. And it's interesting because now, 4 years later, the series is coming out, and it's kind of like an answer to the question because now we have this series that is all Asian cast, predominantly, and and just how have your feelings about those topics changed over the last 4 years with the development of the series?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They've changed a lot. I'll be honest. There was actually a moment when after Crazy Rich Asians came out, I was working on the book, and after years of trying to crack it, I had finally cracked it, and I was getting close to the end, and I was like, oh no. Not that I was not happy about the success of that movie, but just like, is this story relevant anymore? And I think that was a challenge going into the writing of the script and then eventually in production is we are kind of living in a world where representation for a lot of groups, including AAPI, has gotten much better pretty quickly. And I don't want to like be too much of a Pollyanna about it. I don't think like it's all solved or anything, but I do think that it's you can't I don't feel like we can talk about it in the same way that we could 20 years ago, for instance, obviously. But even 10 years ago, from 10 years ago, things have changed a bit. And so to me, the question becomes a bit less about like, can we have representation at all? Versus what do you do with that representation and what does it mean, what if someone and I think that's shown in the story is like Willis is invisible at first, and I won't spoil too much, but he gets more visible through the course of the season. And I think that kind of in some ways maps onto what's happening for AAPI representation is what do you do with visibility, and what kinds of new challenges does that bring? And in some ways, can you be more visible and yet still somehow not part of the conversation or still trying to find your role or part in the conversation, which is, I think, very much what Willis goes through in the course of the season is trying to figure out his role in a new world.
Speaking of new worlds, building this new world for Interior Chinatown, going from this book that is so on the nose. Like I remember going from page 3 to 5, it's literally the same page. It's like he wants to be Kung Fu guy, maybe the next day. And it's the same page the next. I'm like, is this a printing error? No way, that's page 3, this is page 5. I'm like just those kind of moments. And the series does have its humorous parts. One thing that came to mind was like the first fight in the restaurant and how, you know, for a TV series that is choreographed in the novel that would be written out. Um, how did you go about like rewriting this as a television adaptation and and incorporate more visual components? Because the novel itself is written with a lot of narration, inner thoughts, like naturally just text heavy in order to convey its themes and ideas.
Yeah, really good question. You know, with a lot of help, is one thing. With a lot of people who are much better and much more experienced at their jobs than I was at mine. This is my first time creating and show running a TV series. I've worked in writers' rooms, but I'd never done anything like this where I got to sort of, make the decisions. And so, but thankfully, I don't, I get to do it with, 150 other people basically. And so Taika Waititi, who directed the pilot, was instrumental. Well, not instrumental. I mean, he's the one who kind of helped translate those ideas into visual, a visual medium. And so you brought up like sort of the early pages of the book, the idea that Willis's life is so repetitive that you literally aren't sure if it's a typing error. It's funny you say that because one of the publishers of a foreign edition thought it was. They're like, "Is this an error?" And I'm like, "No, actually, there's a tiny difference." And it's like, "Oh, right." But how do you show that kind of repetition, that rhythm? And Taika is so good at finding nuance and finding heart. And so seeing Willis living his ordinary life, basically, his mundane existence, and then repeating that through the pilot, giving that feeling, using music as well, that using slightly different, variations on shots. That's one way. And then, in terms of something with the fight, it's like, um, how do you create a fight with, that's very exciting, but also kind of hopefully funny and a bit off kilter. Again, that's we shot that fight, which is 3 minutes or something in the cut. It's 2 days, 2 very full days, of shooting, and so many stunt performers that are amazing, and then obviously Jimmy and Ronnie as the leads, and Archie's in there as well, and like they all bring their own kind of like creativity to like how do you bring these beats to life, because I can write a few words on a page, but they're the ones who really make that a fun action scene.
When you talk about the visual storytelling of like a mundane, repetitive life, I'm instantly recalling that scene where Jimmy is spinning like the table at the restaurant and the cups like fall off perfectly. And it's like that doesn't seem mundane and boring, but it's like after like the second, third time, I'm saying, oh, okay, I really liked it, but I can tell that, oh, this is just another day for him.
Right. No, yeah, it was a neat trick. That was definitely a Taika kind of invention, and I think he had seen waiters doing it on the internet or something, and so thought that would be cool. And so yeah, Jimmy, anyway, it was very cool. I think you're right. It's like, how do you find, I don't know, I had a day job for many years as a lawyer. How do you find the little moments of joy to just break up your day, and just you get a sense of Willis and who he is and what his life might be like in just tiny moments like that.
I don't want to call it a habit, but I know th there is a pattern I'm noticing with you in your writing where in some ways you've inserted yourself into it. I think your past novel, the science fiction one, the
Yeah.
main character is literally named Charles Yu, right?
Yes, that's the lack of imagination on my part.
Oh, because I was gonna ask if for Interior Chinatown, I know that you have a younger brother, Kelvin,
Right.
if you see you and Kelvin as Willis and his older brother in some regards.
I am definitely not I'm not Chris Pang, nor will I ever be. I don't see, I mean, my brother Kelvin was an actor. He's also a showrunner, and writer, and he's still an actor. But I mean, I definitely had the benefit of hearing and knowing Kelvin's experience, coming up as an Asian American actor. So I definitely, that was a part of, my influence. But I don't think, no, Willis and his older brother don't map onto me and Kelvin at all. I think if anything, though, hopefully, you know, people maybe growing up API in America, I feel like they'll recognize aspects of their experience or feelings or sort of, psychology in Willis.
To close this out, I enjoy asking people this question, and it's what made you a dork growing up?
I mean, comics and video games for sure. D&D. I mean, I guess I was on the math team. But this is, I shouldn't admit this. I was actually a bench warmer on the math team. So that's pretty dorky.
Hey, all Asian American experiences about whether you are varsity math team or bench warmer.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time today, Charles. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and I can't wait to see the whole entire series for Interior Chinatown.
Thanks, Neil. It was really nice talking with you.